So this video is another recording of my Dubai Mastermind that I did the other day with over 68 and 9-figure e-commerce entrepreneurs. And in this video, I got together 3 great friends and some of them clients of mine to jump on stage together and share their learnings across building 8 and 9-figure brands, right? We have Floris from Mother's Earth, who has a mid-8-figure health and wellness brand. We have Merrick from Panadram, a mid-8-figure tech brand. And we also have Steve Tan, who has been behind building brands like Capital Club and done hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue across all different industries. So super excited for this panel. It was hosted from my great friend Armin Ciala, who really did a great job at navigating the panel, asking them around how they really build and scale companies, how they structure the team, how they think about AI, right? All of the important questions around building, operating these 8 and 9-figure businesses. So let's get straight into it.
Yeah, and I will just let Armin take over the stage.
Hello, everybody. Nice to see everybody, and welcome to the panel. It's going to be an amazing discussion. I've been hearing the amazing questions you've been asking recently, so you are all going to be invited to be part of the panel because you're asking amazing questions. I'll do a quick introduction to myself, and then we'll get an introduction from each of the panelists here, and then we'll kick it off. So, my name is Amin, I'm based in Dubai, and I run a lead generation business called Leads Life, and I run the largest lead generation in Tier 3, Tier 2 markets, primarily the Gulf region right here. Primarily in finance space, as well as investing in different brands, mainly digital, scalable operations. And I want to start giving the opportunity for you to introduce yourself, maybe just tell a bit about your name, what business you're doing. Just keep it short and brief, and then we'll get right into it.
Yeah, okay. I'll keep it very short and brief. My name is Floris. I run Mother's Earth, originally from the Netherlands. Right now, since August, living in Dubai. Talking about it, best place on earth, in my opinion. Started Mother's Earth December 24. It's interesting because I was thinking about it. It's kind of a full circle moment for me. Because when I started Mother's Earth, I was in the villa with Carl. First made an event. I got my first traction back then, and now sitting here doing multiple 8 figures per year. So yeah, very excited to get to meet all of you, answer your questions, and connect.
Hi everyone, Steve again. So I've been always been in eCom since 2006, but I found a new love of technology and AI for the last few months and years. So I'm going all in AI and also building on the side while I was on this journey of building a consumer app with only a very, very lean team. So my last venture we did with one of my ex-partners called Capital Club. So we focused on organic distribution and content, or probably what you guys heard of called clipping, and we did about 3 billion views in 1.5 years. So we're trying to do the same for the consumer ads because I feel it has exponential growth if we nail organic distribution combined with paid ads. I think we could scale really fast without having a big team. So that's kind of what I've been going down the rabbit hole these days. Thank you.
Hey guys, my name is Marek, I'm based in Poland. I'm in eCom since roughly 2020 with some breaks. I own my brand Panadram. We're at approximately 30 million, and as I said before, I sell drones, which is a very niche and kind of unusual product. A lot of my recent focus has been in supply chain, since this is a handmade product. Last year I had to visit my manufacturers multiple times and help them maintain the quality of the product. My secondary focus is just to create very simple processes and make my business as boring and predictable as possible.
Well, everyone knows Toby. So I'm going to actually kick off immediately with this because secretly, given that I'm moderating, I want to be a bit biased here. So disclaimer. Did you ever hear me say that? It's one of my favorite sequence of words, predictable, boring, repeatable, forecastable business, I say a business shouldn't be a party, it shouldn't be swinging up and down, how much money did we make last month, how much money did we make, it should be boring. So yeah, maybe let's just kick off with that, dig deeper into that. Why should somebody run a boring business?
Because you want to make money, you want to know how much money you're going to make, and everybody's probably, has an exit in the back of their mind. So I think that predictability gives you that comfort, and definitely if you think from an investor perspective, You want to make them comfortable looking at your P&L and not, have them scratching their heads like, where's this money going? What's happening here? Why is it so unstable? You want even your growth to look good, on a chart. It's like, as one of my friends said recently, you want to leave some meat on the bone and have it grow sustainably and nicely.
Toby, do you find a boring business, quote unquote, more attractive as an investment opportunity?
Well, I think the idea of boring is a little counterintuitive because last time I checked, there's nothing boring about making money. Right? So I think the fact that people call them boring businesses, and I do too from time to time, but I think, maybe recession-proof, long-term sustainability, et cetera, those things for sure. I think on the investor side, much to what's just been said here, an investment for the person placing the investment, their capital in the business, it's a trust game. Like I want to be able to trust that this is a good place to put my money in. If you think about that at a base level, how do you build trust? It's like, well, I trust that the industry is going well because there's lots of positive data to suggest that. I trust that the management team is good because I can see that there's a long-term history of budgeting and forecasting that was relatively accurate. Because it's a trust game, right? But by the time you become a bit more sophisticated in the investment game, you realise that the first decision that you have to make is, am I investing or speculating? Right? And if you don't have some valid data to base your decision off, you are just speculating. So boring businesses that have reliable historical data to reference from a financial performance standpoint is actually how you transition from speculating to investing because you're relying on theoretically verifiable data.
Yeah, and you also used in the most recent speech that I believe is fresh in everyone's mind, you mentioned the importance of doing the boring things. You said in those things that nobody's talking about, you'll never see them on social media, no one's posting the deep Google Sheet calculations they're making, it's just not attractive. Nobody wants to see it.
Correct.
It's not going to get views,
No one's
but
talking
that makes
about,
money. So.
No one's talking about every quarter you should review pricing. Like you should review your pricing every 12 weeks. That should happen. Why? Well, because costs change, performance changes. You want to be able to incrementally move forward. No one wants to talk about that you should be reviewing the structure of your team quarterly and sometimes considering removing people. Why? Because that's boring or uncomfortable or hard or rude, but at the end of the day, it's still a decision required to be made. But a lot of people don't want to do the hygiene stuff, and I think before I was just talking to some of the other guests, similarly from a health perspective, a lot of people say, I want to have whatever it might be, six-pack abs or a nice body and be healthy. But a lot of people can do that, but they don't want to eat the vegetables and monitor their calories and do good exercise and sleep well, but they're the boring things required to achieve.
Quick one, there's a quote that goes, everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die. So that's...
Yeah. But that's it. I think the boring stuff is what matters.
Any comments you'd like to make on maybe a part of your operation which you'd say is unattractive to do, but it's giving you benefits?
Yeah, I think, if we talk about stability, because that's something I really resonated with, I think for me as a founder, I don't per se like the boring things, because I'm more like visionary, but yeah, it is what's necessary, right? Like boring things build the business. Talk about finances. Who's really passionate about finances while it is the livelihood of your business?
Oh, so who does the boring stuff for you? Is it that you're outsourcing it, or somebody in your team, or do you do it but you don't like it?
I think you can never do, like everything you do, you can never do everything that you like, right? Like there will always be stuff that you don't like. I think if I look at my business, it's really where's my strength, and that's the thing that I keep doing, and the rest I find the best people for. So yeah, finding the best people, putting them in the right position, giving them everything they need, and giving them a very good vision and a good culture. And I think that's how we have grown. Yeah, how we have grown.
Speaking of grown, and I've been hearing some numbers from Carl. If you could just reiterate them just to make sure. So, like, you grew pretty fast, and I think it's basically a year or a year and a half.
Yes, so December 24 was when I got the first traction. 25 we did 8.5 million. Last year we did 30, and this year we're aiming for 60.
Okay, so roughly from 8 to 30-ish, and you're planning to hit 60. And you're a D2C brand in the cleaning product niche. My gut question immediately is, how are you doing with inventory? How are you able to actually scale that fast? Like how could you manufacture that fast, that quick?
Yeah, that's a good question. So yeah, we initially shipped from China, so that caused our cash conversion cycle to be very interesting. After when we were profitable and a lot of cash flow, we moved the fulfillment locally. So that of course caused the cash conversion cycle to be much longer. And right now we are managing that with a loan. But that shipping from China has for us cost us to be able to scale so quickly, because otherwise we would have never been able to bootstrap this and scale so quick in such a short period of time.
And how long exactly was the period from when you switched from shipping from China to local fulfillment?
We moved local fulfillment mid last year, so that is 1.5 years that we shipped from China. But so for our brand, one of the big angles is sustainability, right? So yeah, it's not something that some customers really appreciated, and it was needed to get to where we're at that point. But then you need to think further, right? So looking at LTV, looking at the customer experience, like getting it local was the most important decision to make, and also something that was the right decision, because actually after we had some scrutiny in the media, and this was not something that came in there. So
who do you think created the scrutiny?
yeah, I think that the big brands, and that's if you look at right now, that is something that we are actually currently going through. It's just scrutiny after scrutiny, trying to get us down. So it's a nice challenge, I would say, fighting with the media, fighting with the bigger brands, but it's part of it, right?
It's a testimony of what you're doing, you know?
Exactly.
This is where we use the word David and Goliath, or David versus Goliath in this case. But firstly, I actually want to publicly congratulate you on the success, because this growth rate you're talking about is impressive, and it's not easy to do. So you might hear these numbers flying around. Operationally speaking, that's not straightforward. So kudos to you for that.
Yeah, thank you.
The other thing that I want to comment on is you mentioned the word sustainability, and you mentioned the comments on that. So I want to get a bit into that. So there is an ethos into your business and a story and values that the brand has. I'm assuming a lot of people here own brands, invest in brands, etc. How important is that for your brand, for your business to have a vision, a story, a set of values?
Yeah, very good question. I think that is the most important thing, and that also leads into your culture. And I want to go back to the point that I made about people, right? Because in the end, if you want to build a big business, you need the best people. And the best people are always hired. They're always somewhere. So you need to be able to convince them to work for you. And how do you convince them on that? It's not just paying them well, because most of them don't care that much about money anymore, because they already earn a lot of money. So then it's all about your culture, your values, the vision that you have as a founder, and really bringing that across on your people. And that's, same for, of course, your customers. Your customers need to buy into all the values that you have as a brand, the vision, the change that you want to make as a brand. So I think, that is, if not the most important thing in your business, besides, of course, all the operations, marketing, etc., which all comes from that bigger vision.
How have you implemented that in your brand now? Would you say, speak to the values maybe that you've adopted for the brand, and if you've seen that have any impact, positive or negative?
100%. So I would say that the two biggest values are efficiency and investing in people. So for example, last year we struggled a lot with hiring creative strategists. So I just took it upon myself to train all of my editors to basically be like mini creative strategists. Provide them all with courses, copywriting stuff, DR frameworks. But it came at a cost, because our fast growth, and this is also a learning for people here, burned them out, and they were working a lot. They were extremely incentivized. They earned big bonuses at the end of the year.
Wait, what was it that burnt them out?
The bonuses plus the workload. So if if you give a person a bonus that they're not really used to, and if you take them from you know A to B very quickly, that's really not sustainable for a regular person that has never been exposed to this kind of basic work.
That is another one of those points, by the way, that in the years of me following business podcasts and entrepreneurs, that doesn't get talked about much. And from personal experience, I just want to emphasize this. It seems like a good thing to be paying people more and more and more. Unfortunately, due to human nature, that backfires many times. So if you are hiring somebody, paying somebody from personal experience, I'll say, and many trusted entrepreneurs, 5xing their income, 10xing their income, many times will backfire. It's very sad to say, but I've seen this countless times, you know. There are people that most humans are used to stability. So if they earn, for example, $3,000 a month, and then it goes to 3.5, 4,000, they've built their life and their structure around that. That suddenly goes from 3,000 to 22,000 because they're doing really well. Some people can handle it, some people can't. Some people do go crazy from that. And if you're running a business and you're depending on these employees or team members, you'd want to gradually control, you know, kind of the lifestyle changes. So again, this is just, I would argue, one of those very niche kind of topics that I've not heard many people talk about. But yeah, so this sounds kind of similar here. Like if they hit a lot of these bonuses, I don't know if you saw anything similar to this.
100%. This is exactly what happened. So I've done a lot of back and forth with myself with ChatGPT, every single AI model, uploaded every single conversation with all these people throughout the time, tried to analyze the pattern like that caused it. And the funniest, it will sound maybe a little bit arrogant or brutal, but the funniest response I got from ChatGPT regarding that was that it's basically putting rocket fuel in a lawnmower. So it's a lot of people are just not ready for this, you know, and you're doing them a disservice by advancing them so quickly and not making them actually earn it. So there's always has to be like the preserved optionality or that degree of hunger that they need to feel like they deserve, because only through discomfort they're actually able to adapt, and their nervous system is able to adapt to handle that. And you know, it's like with the gym. The muscle develops by failure is the thing with the nervous system. It's only the hardship that will expose you to being able to handle that.
Plus, humans, we get used to things very quickly. So you could have been living in poverty for 15 years. If you suddenly switch to luxury, that becomes the normal status quo in the first couple of months. So, you know, if somebody does start earning a big salary, they're happy for a couple of weeks maybe, they feel like they're a big earner now, but then suddenly that becomes the baseline. So I think it's amazing here, again, the fact that you're spending time on ChatGPT. Did you say that you're taking the transcriptions from your communications?
Yes, I'm
uploading it?
Full OCD, like every single transcription with every single person, every call, every Slack conversation, just to be able to lead these people the best, because I'm aware of my inefficiencies. I sometimes might get caught up in things in firefighting, and sometimes I have a short fuse. So just to be able to adopt my leadership style to a person that I'm interacting with.
Well, that's I think a new AI application. I mean, I've not really ever heard anyone directly say that. I've exported the chats I've had with my team, uploaded them into an AI, got it to observe and analyze that, and then give you tips forward.
Every single failed hire, every single mishire, even people that I'm considering to place in my team, just to kind of benchmark them against what I currently have. Are these people needed? What patterns are they exhibiting? What's the percentage of likelihood that they'll work out? Full CD.
So by the way, this is amazing, and we are going to go into AI, okay? But just before, because you touched on the psychology aspect and human nature, I think it's such an important, crucial part. At the end of the day, everyone here is selling a product or a service of some kind. Who are we selling it to? We're not selling it to machines, we're selling it to humans. We're working with humans, we're competing with humans, so surely understanding human psychology is a crucial part of being able to succeed. So I just want to kind of dive a bit deeper into that. you know, how do you go about maybe educating yourself a bit more and knowing how to understand human nature in order to better succeed in delivering products and services? So, Steve, I'll give you the mic. What comments do you have on this topic in general?
I think Colin made a really good point into really understanding the psychology of like what are the main pain points of all these people. So I think right now AI just made everything much easier. So we actually built like a few bots to actually scrap like a lot of things that actually Carl mentioned. For example, Reddit. So we're building a consumer app which is like a food scanner transparency app. Whereby you scan the barcode and it basically breaks down everything about the product for you. I think for me, I care a lot about cereals, so like I had that as one of the top things, whether this product contains cereals. Then eventually we also had a lot of things to kind of warn people about allergies, like if there's any gluten inside of this product. And I think what I like about like AI is like it makes it so much easier for people to just scan this and give it interpretation into what you're seeing. Because nowadays, like a lot of people, they want to eat clean, they want to feed their kids, or like a lot of parents want to give their kids the best stuff, but they actually don't know that they're actually poisoning them in some way, shape, or form. So when we were doing that research, we actually found a lot of like, they call it the crunch moms, right? So they have this term in the US whereby they want to feed their kids really, really healthy stuff. And they're pretty aggressive about it. So we basically scanned the entire like search engines and Reddit about understanding what are the main pain points. How do we want to like what do they actually do for their kids? And we actually started building this product based on all the pain points and how all our competitors are doing. What is their psychology and how do we actually hit their main pain points? And every single function that we have makes it easy for them to kind of like interpret like what are the ingredients for their kids.
That's very, very cool. And it's, I believe, applicable to everybody here, like immediately today. You know, like one of the things I would like for us to do in this panel is hopefully give you something directly applicable that you can do. So I did a lot of university. I went to the top universities in the world. Theory doesn't mean anything. The only thing that matters is direct action. That is a great example. So technically, everybody here with a brand. What does your brand do, the man in the white?
Safety brand.
Safety.
Safety.
Cool, okay, that's very cool. How about you in the glasses with the blue shirt?
My app does, it's a note-taking app. So we move people who are using paper planner to a digital planner in iPad. So
okay, I want a third one. Who wants to shout out their niche?
Sleep.
Sleep.
We sell anti-snoring devices and sleep products.
Safety, sleep, note-taking, basically. These are just three random ones I've taken. Do people talk about these three topics on Reddit?
Oh, 100%. So when Carl was sharing that, I was thinking to build out like because nowadays like building out softwares, so I was just going down the rabbit hole of like the open cloud. So totally zero tech knowledge. I don't know how to code a single line of code, right? So I think I was just talking to Toby about it this like yesterday. So I have a CTO who handles kind of like our tech stuff. But when I was asking him like, hey, is building out a dashboard actually necessary for like our business? He said, oh no. He said like we can just use the standard stuff, right? So, and I kind of took his word for it, but I sort of understood that he's not coming from an angle of like an entrepreneur or a businessman. He's coming from a perspective of just a tech person. So I took the initiative to kind of try to build it out like quickly, and I got something I would say pretty cool in 6 hours. So I was able to replace a software that was paying about $500 a month, like and probably more, and it does way less stuff than what I do. And I was able to connect a lot of the data that I need. So when Carl was sharing about like the business intelligence, I was thinking, hey, I can just build out something like that and just kind of like scale it out to people. Maybe probably they just need to put into a Shopify store. We'll scan the entire internet based on all the keywords, reverse engineer, and find all the top pain points. Maybe in a like done for you kind of like perspective, so people could kind of like find new angles too. Because eCom is all about marketing, it's all about angles, all about creatives. So like if you make it much easier for people to kind of like find different angles to kind of market to those people in the exact pain points, I think it's gonna be like pretty helpful to build out something internally very quickly for themselves.
You do, your brand's called Panda Drum, right? what's a pain point for somebody for drumming?
Not having the drum. No, but really, there's a lot of applications, like general relaxation. It's not a real like twist the knot kind of pain point. It's just a more of like a nice to have gifting product, but recently the benefit we've discovered is screen time, and a lot of parents want to give their kids a healthy outlet and kind of build up their focus muscles. So
Did you know that in the beginning?
it was somewhere there in the back of our minds, but recently we were able to pinpoint an exact mechanism and the right terminology to start addressing this. That's starting to work for us really well.
This is really cool, by the way. Again, this is like super applicable to everybody, which is like you may end up discovering deeper pain points as you go, as you gather more data, as you get more customers. But obviously you have to listen to the feedback, right? Interpret it and then test things out. But then the other reason why it's interesting why I specifically asked you with the drums is because I'm guessing some of you may be in brands that don't have an obvious pain point. You know, so they say, well, how can I solve for this if it doesn't have a pain point? Like drumming maybe is therapeutic, relaxing, comforting, etc. But there could be other things out there which are kind of tertiary or non-obvious benefits or non-obvious pains that you're fixing.
You actually don't have to go after a problem. You can go after an unaware audience, and for example, a product like ours in the gifting season resells itself. If we just don't get in the way of the product and present it well, and get the right structure of an ad that actually doesn't look like an ad and doesn't throw people away at the first sight, it works perfectly fine. So a problem is not a necessity.
Keyword is said there as well, it said an ad that does not look like an ad. So I'd like to speak about that. Do you run ads that don't look like ads?
Yeah, I think for us, that's also our competitive edge, because my mom is the face of the brand, so yeah, it's something you don't see very often, and she is very natural. So when people see it, it doesn't look like an ad until, well, suddenly our product comes in, right? So yeah, I think for us, that's a big USP from our brand.
Again, like, did you kick off with that? So was the day one of the brand with your mom being the face of it?
Yeah, that's what I saw from the first moment. Mother and son going against the big corporations to make the world a better place by reducing plastic waste, harmful ingredients, and giving back to animals and people in need. Yeah, it works.
That's amazing, I agree. That's really, really cool. But I just want to tie that to what Toby's been talking about. You know, because Toby's kind of maybe brought the mood down a little bit by saying, no one's going to get an exit. You will not exit. You know, you said it's like 1% of the 1% of the 1%. Thank you for sharing real numbers, by the way. Again, these are the statistics that aren't talked about enough. And in general, exits, even like Silicon Valley, if you follow, for example, Silicon Valley, it seems like everyone on the dock is raising millions of dollars of VC funds, and everyone's growing Series A, Series B, Series C, and everyone's making millions. But again, there's such misleading titles, because if you actually look at the numbers, it's like, the percentage of people that are actually selling their businesses. The average age of somebody doing an exit is something like 45, 46 years old. And it's in really obscure niches. Whereas the media makes you believe that it's 22-year-old kids in the basement that are making billions of dollars. It's such a discrepancy between reality and between the media. But I want to bring you in on Toby's fight against the big evil brands, which are polluting the environment, right? And you're bringing something in clean. So technically, his biggest adversaries are potentially his biggest bidders and biggest buyers. What do you think about that approach?
Well, it is a well-trodden path. So there is quite a few examples historically of that happening. And I'd argue, like, definitely in that category as well. Consumables is very popular for that. It's at the end of the day, in that particular context, the reason why it makes. Go back one page. Let's come back one page. If you're selling your business and your business is an asset, there's only two types of buyers, right? There's financial buyers and strategic buyers. So a financial buyer is an investment fund or a family office, and they purely look at your asset as a means to achieving a financial goal, right? So i.e., well, it makes this much cash, I can therefore afford to pay this much if I want to make this much return. Okay, so it's purely that way. Whereas strategic acquirers, whilst they may have a lot of financial considerations, they may also see other benefit that is not available to a purely financial buyer. Okay? So let's say that you're a beverage brand, and Coca-Cola, for example, is looking at you, and a financial buyer is looking at you. A financial buyer might be able to pay $100 because they've proven product market fit in America, but you've only got 3% penetration. I've got global infrastructure, global distribution, global manufacturing, all of these things sorted out and resolved. So I'm not actually buying you purely for the basic financials of what you're doing now. I'm buying you for the future accretive value that I can manufacture because we have a large infrastructure to plug you into, right? And so therefore, by virtue of that, you are meaningfully more valuable to me as a strategic buyer than you are to a purely financial buyer. So you do see this, you see deals like Poppy, getting bought for billions, vitamin water deals, these sorts of organisations, and there's lots of examples of this historically. Supplement companies, Bloom did a great deal, not quite as large, but a great deal a year or so ago. But in that context there, like if you're able to compete in an industry where you fight against the big guys, but you have found a way to get resonance in an audience that they can't, they may be very, very interested in integrating you to their ecosystem. But that's not a purely financial buy in the same way that an investment fund otherwise might value the organisation.
Awesome, there's really, really interesting points there for sure. To pick up also on something that you've touched on earlier that I want to get a feel for as well is regarding this dilemma, right? Because let's say particularly in the e-commerce space, many could be thinking, hey, I'm waiting for the big payday. That's going to be the exit, right? So I'm going to keep grinding and I'm going to be in lock-in mode, until that magical exit comes, but it might not come, statistically speaking, okay? So you're kind of pleading the case to say, you're kind of, I feel like in your presentation, you are reminding people, rightfully so, say, hey, pay yourself.
Basically, and not only just that, but I would argue that to increase the likelihood that you get an exit, what do you need to do? You need to build an asset of value, right? An asset of value is traditionally not characterized by a financial profile that loses money in the long term. It is not characterized by an organization that does not have financial discipline. It is not characterized by an organization that is fully dependent on its founder to stay alive. They are not characteristics of an asset that you would think are reliable to invest in. So I commonly work with founders that I've supported over the last 5+ years. I commonly work through something with them called end game theory, right? So most people say I have an exit plan. Instead I say, well, what's the end, right? And there's a play on words here because the way you design for the end is realizing that you should design as if there is no end, right? And so the first exercise that I go through with them is, well, assume that the equity value in your company is 0, because right now it is 0. Unless you were about to get paid for the equity in your company, it's effectively worth 0. I don't give a shit if you're doing $50 million in profit a year. It's still worth 0 until you get something in exchange for it. So therefore, if you assume the equity value is worth 0, all of your decisions are calibrated towards making the organisation valuable, and value is normally based off of how well it performed financially across the many dimensions that I mentioned before. And a lot of these things come back to, so down here when we're talking about cleaning products, well, one of the things that makes that interesting right now is that is antithetical to the whole industry. So most of the industry doesn't give a shit about Planet Earth, regardless of what they say. But your positioning really cares about it, which taps into the consumer profile who are guilty about doing the wrong thing. It's really emotionally appealing to that group. But as a large organisation, I'm probably not going to test that and or try to compete with that because it's hard to do some of the things that you're doing right now, right? They're big and slow. So instead, they're waiting until you're large enough to be valuable to plug into the ecosystem and then buy you.
Yeah, it's really interesting you say about the end game, or at least your choice of words. So you said it's a play in words. I'm a big believer in words. Words do have a huge effect. I give you an example directly from a business. So I do not call it P&L. I call it a profit log. Because I need everybody in the company to know.
No loss.
We talk about profit. There is no loss. We don't do loss. You know, like I had, for me, it was like speaking on the point you mentioned about kind of the values of leadership and that kind of thing, you know. I had a media, but I like to hire from kind of ex-FANG companies. I did 5 years at Google. I was managing all of the emerging markets. I worked at Apple before it. So really, I was there as an insider, looking for the smartest people in Google and Meta so I can hire them. That's what I did. So my company's effectively all ex-FANG. And I had a guy who was ex-Meta. I don't recommend it, by the way. I've learned the lesson the hard way. I don't recommend you hire people from ex-corporates. They're generally lazy, they're entitled, they think they deserve the money. You don't want that. You want hungry people on your team. So don't make the mistake I did. Just hire for ambitious, hungry people. They will do a much, much better job. Anyway, when I started to notice a specific hire I had that showed me, I mean, it was 2 weeks of consecutive losses. I didn't point out per se on the dollar value of the loss, the principle of us losing. Because that attitude is what we want to encourage across the company, to say, hey, you know, like, would you accept being a loser? Do you consider yourself a loser? Do you run a losing business? That's not me. That's not how I identify myself. I identify myself as a profitable business, as a winning business, winning individual, winning team, winning company. And these changes of attitude and wordings, they have a huge impact across the board.
And the standard that you walk past is the standard you accept, right? You know, culturally from a behaviour perspective, but also from results. You know, we talk about this all the time. You know, and some people might think, yeah, this is militant, but you know, not showing up to a meeting at all or on time, showing up disorganised, not providing material to be read before the meeting so we can have a productive discussion. You know, all of these sorts of things. To me, to follow your mantra here, they are winning behaviours. And winning attitudes, and ultimately, you know, your profit log or loss log, depending on where you're at. You know, your P&L is ultimately a reflection of your 2 fundamental things: 1, the quality of your investment decision making, and 2, the quality of your behavioural standards or your team. If you have shit behaviour, you will normally have shit decisions. But even if you have good behaviour but poor decisions, you're still going to have a bad result on the financials. And so ultimately, like all organisations, you talk about culture and whatnot before. My definition for culture is effectively standards for behaviour and work. What standard do we show up to do work in and behave with at work, you know, every day?
Yeah, no, that's really interesting because you are what you tolerate. If you tolerate mediocrity, well, now you have a mediocre organisation. Steve, like, what's your comments on this?
I think I always tell my team to, like, I'll lead by example. Like, how I want them to perform or show up at work, I'll definitely show them how I show up at work. So if I don't lead by example, I shouldn't expect them to actually do that. Yeah, so that's kind of like how I run my things.
It's like parenting.
Yeah.
So, hands up if you've got kids. Like, way up, hands way up. Oh my God, everyone's so young, I feel very old. Thank you for joining me, right? So one of the fundamental tenets of parenting that you learn anytime sort of after 2 years old, they can sort of, you know, communicate back a little bit and whatnot, is that kids don't learn anything from what you say, ever. Don't do this, don't do that, do this, do this. It really doesn't matter what you say. They learn everything from what you do. And so, you know, I've seen lots of parents have kids that, you know, swear a lot, and they're like, stop swearing, stop swearing, stop swearing. So, well, where do you think they got that from? Well, they got that from observing that you swear. So your behaviour set the standard that's acceptable. And you're running a team. I'm not trying to say that adult management is the same as parenting, but there are principles that definitely sit, you know, across the two. And I think it can be a lot of pressure as a leader and as a founder. You think that your behaviour must be perfect at all times and your work must be perfect at all times, but that would also signify to me that you have perhaps compassion and empathy as an opportunity, you know, as a leader. So whilst we may have incredibly high and meaningfully high standards, we are ultimately still human. And so I think being incredibly firm matters on standards, but also being incredibly fair, you know, matters for standards.
What's your experience been on this, Maris, in terms of the fairness versus firm? You know, like how do you keep that balance? Because you kind of told me off stage you're a bit on the tight side, a bit on the extreme side.
Yeah, and the first thought that came to my mind is that I tend to compete against my own standard, so that also sets an unhealthy standard for the team. And I recently started catching myself reminding my team to, like, don't work overtime. Recently we have we had a lot of situations where people would put in a lot of extra hours and not tell anybody about this, and that also amounted to some resentment and burnout and all that among my top players who never complained. So just came up organically. So this is something that definitely there need to be some guardrails and yeah, I haven't cracked it yet. When it comes to fairness, there's definitely need to be a very simple binary, easy to understand standard that you can hold anybody accountable to, yourself included. But yeah, the simpler, the better, because there's no room for negotiation. So something that can be interpretive, like if somebody can have an interpretation, their own interpretation of that accountability metric or standard, it won't work. People will try to game it, and you will be in a position of where you have to compromise on that. If you want to retain your talent, it has to be set in stone, non-negotiable, very clear, and yeah, I tend to run my recruitment process in a way like, I really like this framework from Mr. Beast. I tell all the people all the reasons why they shouldn't work with me. And I try to discourage them from joining the team. And I plant the seeds throughout the process, and like on some of the last calls, I really intensify this. So for example, when I recently brought in one of the people, we have a lot of open positions right now. We spent 2 hours just going through my flaws and the organizational flaws and why the person shouldn't join us, and they were still excited and still wanted to join the company, and that also puts in a little bit more trust.
To be honest, it's an excellent strategy, because I would assume it would even work in dating. You know, you could say something, hey, by the way, these are all my flaws. These are all my downsides. Are you happy? Yeah. Right. Let's go. So no, that's great. How do you approach this in terms of on the hiring side? I'm assuming maybe there's more values led from your side. How do you see the talent coming in? And maybe tell us a bit about your team.
Yeah, so currently we are about 50 people. We were just talking about it during lunch. The big challenge that we are facing right now is that the layer under C-suite, so the head-offs, well, it was pretty much non-existing, which led to the C-suite being very much in the operations. And yes, strategically, you have to then combine that with the operations. So that's our current, I would say, our current biggest challenge. And on the hiring side, well, we recently got a people manager on board, and I think that is something we should have done sooner. Because in the end, yeah, your company is all about the people. And yeah, right now at 50 people, we got a people manager on board. Before, sometimes I was like making NDAs in ChatGPT and sending them out. And my CMO was making NDAs for people in his team. So there were just a lot of things. The team was growing, but the people weren't looked after, I would say. So that's a big one that actually started last week, which already made a big difference, which wasn't very much your question about the hiring. But yeah, so how we go about our hiring process is first, we are very clear in the role, responsibilities, requirements, and expected results. That goes in the document, and well, with that we also tell a bit about the company, the culture, the values, etc. Then, well, the respective manager has a call with the person, mostly focused on the qualities of the person, and depending on the seniority of the person, for example, the head-offs, we then have them do a task, and then based on that task and based on the first call, I will then have like a final call, and then looking more, okay, how does this person also fit the culture in our company? So that's how it's currently structured, which will be different when we have our people manager managing that process. Because right now I'm doing the last call, and I won't be doing that in the future.
Speaking of people and AI, do you see yourself hiring more now with the advancement in AI tools?
It's a very good question. Yeah, we are going balls deep in AI right now. We have someone joining on Monday who is just all about AI, and we want to spar with him looking at our current company, because I was talking with Evan about that earlier. Like, these people, they don't know your company, they're not as deep in, well, eCom, all the processes as we are, but they do know a lot about AI. And I'm always a big fan of who, not how, so really, well, hiring the best people and putting them in the right position. And in this case, with him, we're going to map out, well, all the processes, just brainstorm with him what would be possible, and then make an impact and effort table to see, like, okay, what are the first things that we want to implement.
So, question for you here. What are you calling this position?
Well, it's actually a friend of me, a friend that has been, he studied AI, and he's just like a really like AI geek. So he will just come on part-time to
Okay,
help us.
so his qualification is AI geek in residence. Okay, AI geek in, because I'm assuming everyone, all companies around the world are going to start thinking about that position. And that position did not exist, it only now exists, like February, March 2026. So, very exciting times, extremely exciting times, that is now a new role as somebody to understand AI and then look at the full process. But as you said, he doesn't understand the business, right? He doesn't have a business background, for example. And so this is the dilemma here is how can you sufficiently educate this person to use the tools in the most effective ways? Because everyone's got access to the tools. It was like, how do you implement them? So it's very interesting. Is anybody else here looking to, you're hiring an AI geek in residence at all?
Already do. I think it's long overdue for anyone who hasn't yet. At least for like simple workflows. It doesn't have to be anything sophisticated.
So you have an AI guy already in the company?
Yeah, it's like a data analyst turned out AI geek.
Okay, so he kind of transitioned. So initially you hired him for data analysis.
Yeah.
And then after a while, you're like, hold on a minute, forget Google Analytics.
Yeah.
Come over to this side.
Yeah, pretty much, because it's very kind of first principles based, and if you understand data, if you're tech savvy, you'll make it.
So, okay, describe for everybody here what should be the characteristics or the skill set of said, AI geek in residence.
I would just put it under one umbrella word: autism. That's
So you want a medical report from the
you want down the spectrum for sure. Yeah.
Can I ask something? Do you want like a local or is an offshore AI geek? Will that do like, how important is it where the person is located?
Always talent over where the person is. Like their contribution to the business over where they are. I used to have a bias to hire like, or to at least attempt to hire people who would be, let's say, more senior in the team and try to hire them locally. That didn't work out. I'm switching my strategy. Maybe this is something I'll do in the future, but right now, speed is all that matters, and talent over location.
So this is interesting because you're kind of stepping into this work from home, offices, etc. I'm actually curious to hear from everybody here. What is your stance now? We're 6 years after the global pandemic, so things have changed. Like we're back to normal, quote unquote. What's your stance on work from home versus work from the office?
So, important context, I was firmly in the camp of you must be in the office every day. That was how I started my career. We had better part of 150 people in one office in one of my first companies, which then we hit COVID and that all went out the window. And then now, a couple of the companies at home have no office. And not only do they have no office, most of the people that work there, who have even worked there for many years, have never met any of the people in person. So I've kind of gone both ends of the spectrum. I think I have this one-liner that is the answer to every single question in business is the same. 2 words, and it is always, it depends, right? I don't think that there is one answer as far as like workforce and resource distribution, leadership roles or not, individual contributors, primarily because I think the context varies a lot. There are certain personalities, and certain role categories and jobs that require geographical proximity, i.e. if you're in content production, you need to work with team members, you need to be there. If you're doing garment construction, you need to be able to work closely with them. outside of those things that don't require physical interaction, I would probably then argue the other end that I think all knowledge work can be done asynchronously and remotely. And I haven't experienced anything to the contrary.
Yeah, so for me, I don't have any experience with like physical offices, so I just speak from my experience with having a virtual team. So yeah, also before I ran Mother's Earth, I had like a dropshipping company where we had everyone digital as well, and right now it's the same. So we have 50 people all over the world in Europe and Asia time zones, and yeah, it works for me.
50 people all remote?
50
different time zones?
Yeah.
Do you have them all work in the same time zone or in different time zones? And how do you measure their performance? Like, do you set them exact targets, etc.?
Yeah, good question. So we have specific calls that they need to attend based on their time zones, but besides that, they are free to do the work as long as the job gets done and the results are there. So we are very free in terms of giving them flexibility there. Then how we manage is we have like, I would say like a waterfall system. So we have like a big ambition for 2028. Then that ambition is broken down into certain North Star metrics, which are the most important metrics of our company. So like CAC, LTV, revenue, like these kind of metrics. And then underneath these metrics, we have initiatives, unique initiatives. And various teams are involved in these initiatives. And these initiatives are broken down in milestones. And that's, I would say, our OKRs, how some people call them. So our like growth, company growth milestones that we measure. And then we also have like a KPI cockpit per department where we measure the most important KPIs. So we have then the operational KPIs, how is everything doing week on week, month on month, depending on the KPI. And then we have the milestones which lead to the growth of the company.
Love it. It's so structured and defined. I guess that's excellent, really. I like this approach of just having a full structure in place. And again, it goes back to the point that it shouldn't be a free-for-all. There's got to be real boundaries in place. To go back to human nature, because we need to know what the boundaries are. We need to know, where do I begin, where do I start, what am I working towards, what's the number that I should hit, what should I not hit. And that sounds to me like you really have a great structure in place. And running a 50-man team, 50-person team remotely, so basically you effectively launched from day one completely remote. So effectively, that's all you know. You don't even have like a reference point of the office to compare it to. Yeah. How about yourself, Steve?
I think before COVID, I'm a strong believer in you have to show up in the office. But after COVID, you're kind of left with no choice. And I kind of like the setup of for people who work from home. But obviously, there's going to be a lot of people that also take advantage of it. But I think it's a reflection of how good your management is, especially when you're working from home. But there's sides of my business that you cannot work from home. For example, fulfillment. So that's hard. But we have another email marketing agency where we have about 80 plus people. That's pretty much all work from home. So that's pretty much a lot of flexibility because there's a lot of moms in the company. They would want to prefer the kind of flexibility in terms of working for a company. But for fulfillment, it requires a lot of on the ball, customer support and whatnot, and a lot of coordination across teams. So it's still better to kind of have it in the office for people to kind of show up day to day. But nowadays, I really do not like too many employees. But sometimes with fulfillment, it's really a high volume, low margin, human intensive. We have about close to 500 people for that business. But it's just a business that I'm not very super inspired by. So I was just telling my partner, hey, we need to roll in some AI agents to kind of it's inevitable that you can have to let go a lot of people. So regardless of whether they show up in the office or not, I think it really depends on your management style. But I think the whole COVID thing just made me realize that, hey, you can have a really efficient team while working from home as well. When you have a really good vision, really good people that believes in your vision, and they're inspired and they're also rewarded with your incentives and things that you placed. Because how we structured it before, especially when I was running my eCom business, we go really hard on KPIs and we run it in Amoeba. So basically everyone is like a small team. Everybody has their own KPIs, and basically the team leaders are their own CEOs of the company. So we have small teams of 4 to 5 people. Of like, so you have a media buyer, you have 2 like support staff, you have different creatives. So everyone have their own P&L. So basically all these teams are actually competing against each other within the companies. Right? So it's a very high, like intensive, stressful, but you get results from people as well. So like for that, I would say that having an in-person office would kind of like work out better because people will be competing with different teams and whatnot. But I think for like, email marketing business, it's kind of a bit more service-based business. I think working from home works perfectly. Yeah.
Guys, this is a fascinating discussion. We're hearing really amazing inputs from everybody. But I did hear your questions earlier, and I know you have amazing questions, all of you. So I want to start to open it up. Don't be shy, just jump in straight to questions. Put your hand up and then keep the question short and snappy. But yeah, you could dictate a specific topic, maybe an issue that you're facing, a dilemma that you have, a question to the team. Go ahead, shoot.
And this is for Toby. So Toby, we are hiring an operations person like a CEO, head of ops. And I'm really curious to know what are the partnerships between head of ops and COOs and CEOs that you saw most successful in companies you worked at?
Sorry, just to clarify your question, you said like what's the best partnership?
Yeah, what do they look like? What the partnership between the COO and CEO look like when they are successful?
Yeah, well, maybe I'll flip the question around. How does it go wrong, right? For the CEO and founder who is maybe more creative, undisciplined and unstructured, by default, that's going to be a very challenging relationship, right? Because traditionally speaking, operations people have, from a psychology standpoint, they're normally incredibly conscientious, they're very orderly, et cetera, and that personality-wise doesn't work very well between them. So if you are a founder or a CEO who is more creative and visionary and less structured, you have to be fully accepting of letting go of all of the structured decisions. And that's normally where the breakdown happens, that I'm not structured, but I'm also not willing to let you make all of the decisions for the structure. That becomes a very big blocker. Ideally, ultimately, really, the way the relationship should work is, in that context, the founder and CEO should be saying, I am here today and I want to get there, help me operationalize that, and leave all of those executional decisions to the COO or the head of operations. I'd say the other context that goes wrong a lot of the time too is that I think, especially first-time founder operators, they probably don't really understand what the operations role actually is. So when they say, I'm going to bring in this person and they want it to go really well, it's all well intended, but they're not really consciously aware of what value they're actually hoping to get. A lot of the time they just think, oh, it's systems and processes, which is a very broad idea. And so I think for the founder and CEO who's not inevitably very clear on what it is they actually want, that also causes it to break down. Because the reality is that from a COO standpoint, they should be able to make the company grow quickly, spend the least amount of money, have the least amount of people, incur the least amount of risk with the lowest failure rate. That's kind of the way the COO should be incentivized. And so for CEOs and founders who are not willing to hand over structured decision making and or not happy to get out of the way of execution, that can be a very, very big problem.
As the business grows, I've personally found that the solutions that are in the advice I need is more context specific. And so how do you go about finding mentors or consultants to give you that really specific advice?
Is that for me or the group?
So just to rephrase the question, I'll just repeat it for the room. So he's saying that as the business grows, the issues or problems that you have become more and more specific, more and more complex. So a generalist isn't good enough to solve them. How do you go about finding the right mentorship, guidance to solve these very specific questions? Really interesting.
Are you in eCom? You know Masterclass? Okay, yeah, I would advise you to go to Masterclass. So essentially, all of the biggest eCom guys are on Masterclass, and you can like book a call on there, like half an hour call, hour call. It's similar as like Clarity. I think before Masterclass was Clarity. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Clarity. Yeah, it's a similar concept, and mental pulse is like, well, yeah, you essentially. So I would recommend you to check it out. I've done a lot of calls there with people when I had a very specific problem, and then you can sort it out by, okay, ops or marketing or CEOs that skilled like past 9 figures, like things like that.
I would definitely say that events like this are a great place to find people with very, let's say, nuanced problems. You can just ask around, people know each other. It's a small space, everybody knows each other's business, everybody knows each other's brands and problems, like sticking points. That Enterpass, great example. LinkedIn is also really good. For example, if you have an operational problem, there's a lot of transferable skills. So, for example, if you don't know an operator in eCom, or you didn't find somebody in Enterpass, you can shortlist people from, let's say, Amazon, really good ops people. They could be able to jump on a call with you and help solve your ops problem. Join the Mastermind.
So I'll give you maybe a different perspective, which is to say that whatever the problems that you have faced in the past, or currently facing, or will face in the future, chances are others have faced the exact same issues. The human experience is all the same throughout time. I mean, what I liked about Toby's presentation earlier, I don't know if anybody noticed it or not, but he actually didn't refer to any specific niche, or didn't show a single brand or product. That's fascinating. What does that tell you? Because all business is the same. It doesn't matter what the product that you sell is or which market. The fundamentals are the same. So that means the issues that you're facing have been faced by multiple smart people, past, present, and in the future. So somebody has faced those issues, which is fine. But then I would say that a lot of people have this deep fantasy inside them that there's somebody out there that has the answer to all my problems. And there's a guidebook out there, and there's a correct series of steps that I need to take to reach the end goal. Doesn't exist. There is no guidebook. That's just the savage truth. And there's times when you just have to pull the trigger yourself and go ahead, because there is no one single unified answer. And many times there are 2, 3, multiple paths to reach the success point that you want to reach. Which one's right? Which one's wrong? Again, to use Toby's 2 words, it depends. So many times, I would say I'm not on the mentorship side from a personal perspective, because I feel and I believe many times it's somebody trying to slowly shift accountability and responsibility. Say, hey, I'm too scared and too anxious to make this decision myself and be accountable. I'd much rather shift someone else to take that decision. But the reality is, you're going to have to make some really tough decisions yourself and be fully accountable to them. And that's how you build experience.
Go ahead.
I have a question. I mean, you hired a lot of C-suite or head-offs and so on. I mean, they need to be good at what they're doing. But other than that, like from people that stayed and you developed and people that left and were basically not good, like what are like the key values these people have, and like I'm missing the word, but like values or traits, and which don't, or what are not good.
Maybe just a couple of ideas for you, right? The dramatic majority of C-suite roles, so the individuals who fill those roles, the dramatic majority of them are useless. Okay, so let's start with that as one idea. And they're useless at almost everything except one really important thing, and that's like political schmoozing. So a lot of C-suite individuals are actually incredibly sophisticated at convincing you that they're very good, but they're actually not very good at all. Okay, so that's a really important idea to get comfortable with, because a lot of organisations they reward obedience and they reward political gameplay. They don't actually focus on rewarding results. So when you go to market to recruit them, it's a minefield, unfortunately, right? The second thing is, so I own a HR consulting and recruitment agency as part of my broader portfolio, and what we observed is that about 80% of all recruitment failures were defined by a person who doesn't pass probation. We normally consider probation to be about 6 months or so. almost all of them fail because of values misalignment, not actually lack of capability. So just to be clear, I understand how that is slightly at odds with what I just said. So the majority of C-suite people are useless, right? But the majority of recruitment failures actually occur because of values misalignment, right? And when I say values misalignment, that's a combination of the way someone sees the world and believes they should show up to work, but it's also about the way that they think work should get done and or be expressed in the workplace. And so what you're trying to do and understand is figure out when you go to market with these people, does this person have the relevant context, knowledge and experience to do what I need them to do? Do I think they have the appropriate attitude, behaviour and values to integrate with our organisation? And is the context of this opportunity at this point in time for that person's life the right opportunity? Right, so there's three major dimensions to align across. But unfortunately, and this is probably the last item, so I can talk about recruitment for ages, I'm very passionate about it. The last item here is that no matter how rigorous your recruitment process is, if you do personality profiling, competency assessments, you've got 100 questions, you do a recruitment panel, you work with experts, it doesn't matter what the fuck you do, you are still going to mess it up a lot of the time. And that's fundamentally certain based on the evidence of recruitment, based on the simple idea that humans are really complicated. Like, it is really, really hard to understand who somebody is and or what they can do in, 1 or 2 hour conversation or whatever it might do. It's hard to understand that even in 10 hours. So you're going to mess it up a lot of the time because it's complex, but I would argue that other than actually finding the right person, C-suite or whatever it might be, the second most important thing as part of this process is that you are absolutely violent with the discipline and decision making in the onboarding and probationary period. The instant that you get a signal that that person is not interested in doing the right work or able to do the right work and or honest, it's a really big one, about whether they can do the work, they're gone. It shouldn't even be a second consideration. And just on that point, how you make that decision, yes, the point here before, you can be savage about how you make decisions, but you should always be fair in how you express them, right? So although you might be black and white about this being the right or wrong person, it doesn't mean that you need to chop on with the knees, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, to actually take a leaf out of Silicon Valley's quote, they say, hire slow, fire fast. That's like exactly what you just said, actually, and they've boiled it down to 4 words, which is incredible. Other questions? Go ahead.
Could you say something about system? All of you are like operating large teams and have like a lot of employees. How do you manage the system? Like, how do you make the system that everybody knows what to do and what time, and that in like a founder perspective or in the vision? How do you make sure that the things that you're thinking is actually what happens?
That's an interesting question. So you're saying, what systems are you using or what systems are you building in order to be able to manage the operation and make sure that the goals get achieved? So I run a very small company and I want to make it as small as possible. So I want to give it to somebody with more manpower. So I'll start with you, Toby. What would you think?
Broad topic, right, and complex problem. So in music, so I don't think I'm a musician or studying music at all, growing up or now. In music, there's this little thing, so I played piano for 17 years, studied Romanticism period, classical music, and there's this little thing that sits on the top of the piano. It's called a metronome. Anyone know what a metronome is? Yeah, okay. If you do know what it is, you know that it's like the most fucking annoying thing you've ever seen in your life, right? So a metronome literally goes tick, 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 tick. It's like a conductor in front of an orchestra. They wave the sticks around. The whole function of that is that you play in time with the metronome, right? So whatever you do, whatever notes you're doing it in time with the metronome. My thesis here is, regardless of the tools that you use, the systems, whatever it may be, that the most fundamentally important thing is that you have a rigorous, what I call operating cadence or operating rhythm to uphold to. So when I say that, what I mean is every month, or every day, every week, every month, every quarter, our business has to deliver these things. So for example, in my companies, every quarter we do budgeting reforecasting. Every 6 months we do learning and development and employee performance reviews. Every month we do an MBR, which is a monthly business review. So there's these things that are like a metronome, they go off every period consistently forever that the whole company gets around. To me, having a version of that, no matter how simple, is probably the most important thing because it's something that never changes. You always have to follow that so you never get off track. So regardless of tools, systems, processes, or otherwise, to me, having a structured, rigorous cadence to actually follow is probably the most important thing at a base principle level.
Oh, that's very, very cool. I'll say, humans lie, but numbers don't lie. So the less metrics that you can look at, the simpler it is. I think if there is a case when you have, let's say, 20 pieces of data points, it becomes too confusing. But if you can boil that down to, let's say, 2, 3, 4 core KPIs that you periodically check, like you said, I would say one of the things that I took from my time at Google actually is how we were doing the forecasting, the reporting, and I do that in all my businesses now, which is we just measure absolutely everything every day to yesterday. So every single day we look at how much did we spend on ads yesterday, how many clicks did we get, what's the CTR, how many leads did we generate, what was our CPL, what was our revenue per lead, which traffic source, down to a T, every single day religiously, done that non-stop 4.5 years. I will continue to do that for however long we'll survive. And then, that's yesterday. We do it for the week, then for the month, then for the quarter, then for H1, H2, then for the financial year. So that gives me a very clear snapshot, a visual way that I can look at my business, like face to face. And that becomes the North Star, is what I would say. Because, at the end of the day, everyone here is interested in operating a for-profit business, right? This isn't a non-profit mastermind, right? This is a for-profit business. So surely the goal should be profit. And it's always been interesting to me. I don't hear that word enough. I don't know, is it not cool enough? You know what I mean? What are we all here to do, Is everyone here to just suffer and lock in and put yourself under pressure 7 days a week and say, oh, I'm an entrepreneur, nobody knows how bad I go, You don't get any points for that, You don't get extra dollars in your pocket by suffering. You want to generate a cash flow, profitable business. So I would say, from everything that I've seen in general, it's always been the case that if I can look at a profit metric, that's usually a close indicator of the health of my business, right? It's just like, okay, if I'm going to check my, let's say, body mass index, or the percentage of your body fat percentage, that's a number, right? Your weight, these things, you need something to measure directly, and you gotta pick what that is for you. As you mentioned earlier on the revenue pieces, so you had a slide say revenue is vanity, profit is
Sanity, cash is reality.
That's very cool.
Not my side, it's stolen, but it's
yeah. Well, it's borrowed. It's borrowed and shared. They always. Steve, anything you want to add to this?
I think I once heard Jack Ma of Alibaba said that it's illegal not to make any profits. If you want to make any profits, don't be an entrepreneur, something like that. So I think it resonates a lot when I started, because sometimes when you start building different companies, I kind of fall into the trap of I don't want to make money because I want to scale, right? Yeah, but I think eventually that kind of backfired in some ways. And which is why I asked you a question just now, when you start having some money, what's the easiest way to lose money? Because I was when we made some money with crypto, and when we started wanting to multiply the money, and when sometimes you make some fast money too fast, right? You tend to overly reduce your due diligence when you're investing into a lot of different entrepreneurs. And we also invested a lot of eCom, DTC brands, which looked very nice on the surface. And I was probably a very noob investor, and I was just seeing the wrong numbers and the wrong metrics, and I was just losing a lot of money at the point of time. Yeah, so.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I mean, on the whole, when you get an exit, a lot of people don't understand how somebody that sold his company for 800 million could possibly be upset and sad and have no purpose. But how many stories do you need to hear? You go on right here now. It's unbelievable. We all need a sense of purpose and a reason to wake up in the morning, and we need a reason to struggle and fight. And you think that, oh no, if only I have this amount in my bank account, then I'll be happy, then I'll reach this promised land.
That never works, by the way. Sorry. Yeah, that never works, by the way. I'll have this money in my bank and I'll be cool, right? But sorry, let me reframe that. It didn't work for me, and I've got quite a few people in my network who are meaningfully more wealthy than I am in liquid, in the bank. And that drive to either A, do more, or B, worry about maybe losing it or messing it up doesn't really ever go away. I think if anything, you almost come to terms with the fact that the responsibility of like managing liquid capital is almost more and scarier than running a business. You know, the business is a known, right? I know what this business is, I know how to operate it, I theoretically roughly know how much money I'm going to make, etc., etc. You know, 10, 50, 100, how many millions you got in the bank. I know that's the money, but it's completely unknown what happens now. You know, and to, you know, some of the points down there, it's like, oh, I don't know, what's crypto, what's bonds, what are deposits, you know, what are equities, you know, like, that's another whole language.
You know, actually, I occasionally like joke about this, which is, like, how much content is there online for how to make money? Lots, right? Everyone is telling you how to make money. But what no one talks about is, what do you do when you have money?
Or how not to lose it. You know, Charlie Munger, who's was Warren Buffett's business partner, one of the greatest investors of all time, had to give a speech, I think it was at Harvard, you know, sort of 25 years ago, and they're like, oh, we want you to come in and talk about how to live a really happy life and how to be successful. And he gets up and spends, you know, nearly an hour basically saying, well, I have no idea how to be happy and live a successful life, but I am very, very, very aware of what to do if you want to be unhappy and fail. So instead, I will tell you, here are all the things that you need to do if you want your life to be miserable, and here are all the things that you should do if you want to be a failure. And obviously there's some comedy, you know, in that laid into it, but the insights and value that come from, this is referred to as inversion, it's a mental model called inversion, is so insanely valuable. I can't express how much it changed my life. And so the idea of having money, you know, liquid capital in the bank and going, well, how do I make money? That is a wrong question, right? The right question is, how do I make sure I do not fuck this up, right? Because it's so much harder to make money from liquid capital than it is to actually make money in business. And I know that sounds crazy, but it is so much harder.
Yeah, actually, there's a book that I would say changed my life that I highly recommend to everybody here. In fact, I am begging you, please buy this book, please read it. It's called Die With Zero by an author called Bill Perkins. Okay, and it speaks to a lot of the discussions that we've had here in terms of, you know, scaling, and reinvest everything back, you know, aim for that exit, you know, everything is coming, you know, just to kind of tap into a bit of the mental health issue. And there was an amazing question that the gentleman over there asked earlier to you. He asked you, he said, why do you do what you do? Or, you know, what's the motivation? I think these topics in particular, some people may see like, oh, what's this got to do with anything? It has everything to do with everything, you know? The desire and motivation is exactly what's going to get you to reach, to find the answer. But Die With Zero, this book by Bill Perkins, you have to read it, you know? And it's just one of the only books, so it seems like you've heard about this book, from what I'm saying. It's one of the only authors that actually, you know, everyone's there encouraging you to be wise with it. Save it for a rainy day. Don't overspend. Be careful. Be ready for this. That's all great. There's a lot of good wisdom in there. But he's actually a very different voice to say that, hey, you should aim to actually die with zero. So the only benefit that you have in life is actually to acquire memories and experiences. Because once you're an old man or woman, the only thing you take with you is the experiences and memories that you have. So I think a forum like this is very relevant because the idea here is, you know, if you've ended up in this room, you've figured out a way to generate capital online using digital means. Okay, so now the only question is how much of that you'll make. But then the real big question is, okay, well, what do you do after the fact? You know, what is the thing that you're all chasing? Okay, I want to build a big business. Why do we want a big business? For ego, for, you know, for reputation, to make money. Okay, why? Well, what do you want to do with that money? And a lot of people haven't even thought about these questions. It's like, well, what do I want to achieve with this? So, Die With Zero, Bill Perkins, strong recommendation. Any other questions here? Also, we have a question about.
So there are different things you can do to buy back time and cut some frustration or like pain out of your day. For example, like hiring someone to clean your room or hiring a chef or like out of the business. I mean, you know, you can have certain hacks, right? To improve your life, reduce stress, and you know, be like have like a more joyful time spending your day and also like your business. And everyone has their own, you know, little things they can do. So just a question to all of you, like, what has been the thing you did, what like radically improved your day?
Cool, that's a really good question. Why don't we start from Flores. So he's asking basically, what's a life hack that's giving you benefits, advantages to work better, more efficiently, etc.?
Keep your wife happy, I think is a big one. That's actually true. I mean, if you have a good relationship, yeah, that does so much to your output in work, your efficiency. And I would say, yeah, for me personally, move to Dubai and get a nanny. I mean, a nanny, it's a life hack. She cooks, she supports in the home, she cleans, she supports her with our son. If my wife needs to go out, it's too much for her. So for me, yeah, that has been a life changer. But anything where your mental capacity is going towards where you would say, yeah, that's not worth it, I think cooking will be a very big one. Yeah, get a chef. Like the ROI on it is, yes, crazy.
I think on that too, it's not just the time, right? Like you touched on it, so a lot of people go like, oh, how do I manage my time? I like to think about how do I manage my energy, right? Because like you can free up the time mechanically, but if you're still exhausted and drained, it's not necessarily like productive free time. So I think, yeah, to your point, I 100% agree. Whatever it might be, if you're chef or nanny or whatever for you, whatever the thing is, freeing up time is one thing, but then freeing up time and energy is a complete different thing.
I think I 100% agree on the nanny or the maid thing. I think when you grow up in Singapore or in Asia, like you're very used to having a maid at home. So I grew up with like 2-3 maids like in my family, and kind of like now I was always joking with my brother, I can never move to a country whereby there's no helpers, because like you're like it's just too good. Like it settles everything. You don't have to worry about washing your dishes. I can't do that shit, right? So like the amount of time you save just by not even thinking like what to cook every single day. So we have like in Malaysia, things are so cheap, right? So as a Singaporean moving there, we have currency advantage. It's 1 Sing to 3x like Malaysian dollars. So me and my brother, we have 2 nannies, we have a driver, we have a cook, right? And like, you know, I have a massage coming in every single week. So it makes like the lives just so automated, very optimized. And I really believe in like having fun and enjoying your journey at the same time. Because as entrepreneurs, we're always like, you know, hustling, new problems, employees, HR, everything, different things. And I believe making yourself enjoy all these little things without having to like, my chef can cook like a freaking Michelin chef, right? She could freaking plate, like, you know, things are so just nice. And I would say that even in Dubai, like that's one of the places that I have a few friends moving in, because like one of the biggest points that they moved in here is also because of the nanny. So I totally agree on the nanny part, and I've never moved to a place without that. And I think just saving time, because like if you have to think about what you eat, for me it's like every single day is like just, yeah, that timing, it's really done on the table. I just have to walk, because I work from home, right? So I basically don't have like the commute time and whatnot, so I save a lot of time, and I save time on making decisions about like what I eat, what I wear, when I go out, everything is just kind of ready when I'm ready. So yeah, for sure.
Quick ones from my side. I want to third the concept on mates. Anyone from Europe, I know it's like an unusual thing, but it's life-changing. So much time saved. It's absolutely incredible. Highly recommended. 8 hours of sleep is incredible. Okay? I don't know why some people do this, you know, you're staying up till 2 a.m., 3 a.m. and working. I don't believe in that philosophy at all. There's nothing to be proud about of, you know, staying up because you're working on your thing. No, you ideally want to create but as far as I'm concerned, my brain is my tool. This is my team member. You know, I need this guy. So how can I maximize the output of my brain capacities by giving 8 hours of sleep, looking at what I eat? Like these very, very simple things, I tie them to business performance. So whereas somebody else would see it as, no, I'm gonna overwork, you know, I'm gonna do an all-nighter, I'm gonna stay up, etc. That's actually, that's shooting yourself in the foot. So I really would just stress on the importance of sleep, which sounds so basic and so simple, but your body needs it. We've been sleeping for millions of years and we'll continue to sleep. So if you want to succeed in business, get 8 hours of sleep.
I agree. Sleep is crucial. Whatever people tell you that you have to hustle and you know stay up until 2 a.m. you're going to. baby steps anyway. And this thing is very useful. I know it's like, you know, everybody wears this and it's like a little bit overrated, but it helps me track that sleep because sometimes I have a tendency to stay a bit longer, and it just keeps me accountable, and that's the only purpose I actually use it for. Like everything else would just be like decision fatigue and overwhelm me. And to build on maybe on what Toby said, I think managing energy is really important. So what you eat and what you do with your body. So for example, for me, when I eat too much rice or you know, my insulin spikes and then I'm like kind of sluggish, so I just avoid this type of food. I eat only in the afternoons, bigger meals, and to manage stress, because this was also your initial question, I think hard workouts, at least 2-3 times per week, just to kind of get rid of that built-up adrenaline and cortisol, is something that I would definitely recommend to do. Don't bring your phone with you. Just lift heavy. Get a trainer if you struggle with it. It's not something expensive. Get a trainer. Even if you know how to work out. Like for example, I've been working with a personal trainer for the past 3-4 years, but this is just an outsourced accountability mechanism for me. So I have somebody that I'm paying that's waiting for me. We develop a friendship. So yeah, this is somebody I wouldn't stand up and like I wouldn't make an excuse for. So yeah, I think that's also.
Toby, last one from me, and then we will wrap up the session.
I mean, it's all about your means, right? I mean, how much can you afford and what makes sense? You know, I got a team of 8 or 9 people that are in my lifestyle services team, which is literally just about, it has nothing to do with work at all. It's just how do you make my life easier. You know, to some of the points down here, you know, never booked a flight, any of that sort of stuff, never cleaned my house, you know, all those sorts of things. But to be clear, when you're earlier on in the grind, that's not accessible, you know, and or affordable, you know, for the majority of you. I think, so whatever the things are that get in your way, time and energy-wise, I'll be investing back into that. Slightly, you know, off piece here a little bit, but 2 things that come to mind for me, where I think time matters. A lot of people will sacrifice their health to build wealth, but for me, like, wealth's not just a financial thing, it's about quality of life, you're on the way through as well. So I would spend a large amount of money to free up my time so I could train, for example. Like jiu-jitsu to me is really important, it's a massive mental release. So I will never ever miss that. I will invest any amount of money to have that. And then the other thing is that I would also invest any amount of money to be able to maintain mental presence with my kids. That's the difference between being physically present and mentally present. You're with my children, so whatever it costs me to do that, I would do that too.
That's amazing. Well, go on.
Which I think is it's like an unpopular opinion, but like taking time free as well, and it's okay to, well, not always work. That's something that I used to struggle with. It was always like grind. If I didn't work, I didn't feel good. And especially when you are building your team and you start handing responsibilities to your team, and you will feel that if you don't always have something to do, it will be a very weird feeling. But I think that feeling, and of course it really depends on where you're at right now, is the moment that you actually start becoming a leader, and you should also really start taking time off, because that's, I think, what too many people are not doing. And those moments will give you the genius ideas, right? Like as a CEO, founder, like golfing, not thinking about anything, and suddenly the solution pops in your mind. Or like, that's why taking time off is such a crucial thing as well. Yeah, that's the last point I wanted to give you as well.
It's very cool. That reminds me, anyone heard the word eureka? The little eureka moment, right? So if you actually ChatGPT the history of the word eureka, it's an old story of somebody was in the bath, and then he came out of it naked because he just came up with this crazy idea, and he kept screaming, eureka, eureka, eureka. So there's a lot of scientific evidence to say. So many amazing points raised. Floris, Steve, Marek, Toby, thank you very much. It's been absolutely amazing to hear. Of course, thanks all for your questions as well. We're wrapping up the panel. I'd always like to make a special shout out for the man that got us all in this room today, which is Carl Weische. Had it not been for him, we wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be here. We'd be together. These people are amazing. There's not many of them in the world, all right? You know, a lot of us kind of work in these single lanes, but somebody to bring everyone together from all over the world is incredible. So I'm very grateful to you, Carl. Keep doing your thing. It's amazing. I've been seeing him do this year after year after year. And as I told you earlier, I see it's easy to get lucky once, twice maybe, but if you can do something consistently, that's real success to me. So thanks a lot, Carl, for setting this up. Thanks for the panel, and thanks to everybody here.
Hope you enjoyed this video. It was packed with value. I myself took so many notes while listening to them. And if you want to see more content like this about really scaling and building profitable e-commerce brands, then check out all of the other videos on my channel. I have over 100 videos covering everything from paid acquisition, funnels, offer building, copywriting, right? You're going to find a lot of other mastermind recordings on my channel. So make sure to subscribe, check out all of the other videos, and I promise it's going to be a lot of value. And if you want to get more of my content, make sure to follow me on Instagram, send me a DM to connect with me, and then I will see you there.